When was the last time that you made a mistake? Chances are it probably went unnoticed. However, let's imagine you're the Pokemon company and you make a little mistake. Do you think that's going to go unnoticed? When the Pokemon company makes an error, we can end up with everything from the barely noticeable errors to the glaringly huge things that make you just wonder, how did this get in my hands? But what actually is an error card? And more to the point, why do we care about them? Let's try and break down some of the different common error types that we will see. First up, we're going to look at miscuts. Now, miscuts are probably one of the easiest of the error cards to identify, simply because it's pretty obvious when you've got a miscut card. So if you didn't know, Pokemon cards are actually printed on giant sheets of hundreds and hundreds of cards, then cut down several times into the shape that we're familiar with. Now, at each of those cutting stages, there is a chance that something could go wrong. When it does, that is exactly how we end up with our miscut cards. These are some pretty tame examples of miscut cards. We've seen ones that are way worse than this, where you can end up with half of one card and half of another card. How they make their way through the quality control process, well, that's a very good question. The next type of error card we're going to talk about is printing errors. This is where, when the cards are being printed, something has gone wrong. So we have some examples here from my collection. We have a Charmander, which, as you can see, has an ink blot above the D. And we also have this spectacular printing error on this Grass Energy here. There is just a whole load of black ink splodged all over the surface. With the printing errors, that's where we can see some of the more well-known error cards. It's thanks to printing errors that we get first edition D stamp Butterfree. This also ended up in the infamous Ghost Stamp cards, which in some of the early printings of the first edition base set, there wasn't quite enough ink put into the ink plates when they printed those first edition stamps, and so you end up with a grey stamp that's often known as a ghost stamp. Now, you might have noticed, but they're more things that have happened by chance, right? So now, let's actually look at some proper error cards. Next category of error cards that we're looking at is design errors. These are things that have managed to be printed onto the cards and nobody through the whole process of designing that card has managed to pick up on the error. These can look like pretty minor things, like with our Ancient Mew here. It actually says Nintido instead of Nintendo right down here. However, the errors can also be pretty big deals. For example, let's take these jungle holographics. They have no jungle set symbol on them, but they are definitely jungle holographics. You imagine the number of people that have to look at these cards, okay the design, print them, quality control them, and then they still find their way into our hands. So that really begs the question, doesn't it? Are error cards worth a lot of money? So let's take, for example, the Dark Arbok from the Team Rocket set. This is an error card. It says copyright 1999 to 23,000. That's a little bit of a mistake, eh? So is this card worth more because it's an error card? Well, I hate to burst your bubble, and all the people that are selling them on eBay as an error card, but no. It is worth about the same as any other rare Team Rocket card. And the reason being is that this error was never corrected. Every single copy of Dark Arbok printed for the Team Rocket set will say 1999 to 2300. And to prove my point, I have every single printed copy. So we have our Dark Arbok Unlimited, 23,000, Holo, 23,000, First Edition, 23,000, and First Edition Holo, 23,000. They all say it. Well, apart from one version anyway, which is this one, which is actually the Wizards stamp, which has the little gold Wizards logo on it. This one was actually corrected. It's a bit of an anomaly. It doesn't necessarily mean it's worth more because it was corrected. This is actually just worth more because it's part of a promo set. However, if an error gets noticed and corrected, that can end up meaning that we end up with some very valuable error cards. So if we look at the Dark Dragonite card, there were some of them that were printed as a non-holographic, but with the set number of 5 out of 82. Now normally, the set number card 5 out of 82 is a Dark Dragonite, but it's actually the holographic Dark Dragonite. Now these cards were printed in both first and unlimited versions with this error. However, it was picked up pretty soon, meaning there are limited copies. And that is what makes an error card valuable. Like with anything in Pokemon, those people that chase your PSA 10s, the super rare cards, our trophy cards, the thing that makes them valuable is the limited amount of them. Uncorrected errors, where all of the cards are printed, are a fun curiosity because they really still should have never ended up in our hands, but they're not really very valuable. Someone like me, I really love all the error cards, corrected, uncorrected. I think they're a really fun thing to collect. However, if you're in it for the money, you want to be looking for those corrected errors. As always, make sure that you do your homework about the cards to understand whether what you're about to buy is a corrected error or an uncorrected error. But when is an error card not an error card? There are sometimes changes that are made by the Pokemon Company when they bring them over from Japanese into English. We've seen this with the so-called banned cards, which we're going to do another video on later. The best example of this that I can think of is the red Cheeks Pikachu. What we have is a shadowless base set Pikachu that comes with red cheeks. When this card was first printed in Japanese, it actually had yellow cheeks. When Wizards of the Coast printed it, however, for the English sets, they decided to recolor the cheeks red. The general thinking behind that is that they wanted it to match Ash's Pikachu that we saw in the anime, who also has red cheeks. Now, as the story goes, there's a few different versions, but generally speaking, the Pokemon Company weren't too happy about that and told Wizards of the Coast that they need to change it back to yellow. This means that there are a limited quantity of these shadowless base set Pikachus that actually come with red cheeks. So although this isn't an error card, it is still worth more than a yellow Cheeks Pikachu because there are limited numbers of them. Interestingly, we also saw the red Cheeks Pikachu pop up for the E3 promo card that I'm very lucky to have a copy of. Go have a look in your collection, see if you've got any little hidden gem error cards in there. Thank you so much for watching along. Hope you've learned all sorts of things about error cards, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye. We have... Stay still, Jigglypuff. Oh my god, no, stay there. Oh no, why are you not standing up? Stand up. Oh my god. I know you're the ball Pokemon, but Jesus Christ.